All right, everybody's here and we are live, so I'm going to call this meeting of the Wednesday, September 25th, 2024, meeting of the Planning Board to order. Before we do introductions and begin, we'll have everyone stand and face the flag for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. All right, we will begin with introductions, and we'll start. Go ahead.
Robert Davies, alternate.
Skip Severance, member.
Chris Evans.
John Moore. Sorry.
Teresa Bascom.
Drew Stevens.
Doug Cummings.
Blair Haney, SRPC.
Okay, so before we get to the case that we will be hearing this evening, we have case number 24-00. Yes, that's okay. 24009 Nottingham Business Park, 145 Old Turnpike Road. We do have some information on that I will share, but prior to that, thank you, Mr. Warren. I will seat Robert Davies for Ed Neal, our chair, who's not here this evening. He will be seated and voting. It is a formal request to withdraw the application. Millennial Engineering is representing Mr. Moulton going forward due to the fact that GM2 will no longer be providing services to private sector customers. It means they need to start over with the survey and design work, so they are asking that we withdraw without prejudice their application. I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept their withdrawal and without prejudice.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the applicant's request to withdraw their application without prejudice. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we shall proceed to vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 That was unanimous, so no. All right, the second is case number 24-011 Sub York, 206 Mill Pond Road. Application from Jones and Beach Engineers Incorporated on behalf of Mill Pond Realty Investments LLC, requesting approval for a 4-lot conventional subdivision at 206 Mill Pond Road in Nottingham. All right.
Good evening, Ian McKinnon with Jones and Beach Engineers, and here with me tonight is Mike Garapi, the applicant with Mill Pond Realty.
Beside you is who?
Mike Garapi, so Mill Pond Realty
Okay.
applicant. So tonight before you, what we submitted, I believe you all have copies of, are two 11x17s with a little color on them. At the last meeting, the board asked that we look into some alternative layouts based on more in line with the historical interpretations of the lot envelope that the board has used. So the first plan, I'll kind of walk through the differences between the two. The first plan in front of you, what I've shown is the red line, just again, to make it a little more visual. The red dashed line is what we would consider the lot envelope. And so each of the lots has it calls out the square footage of that lot envelope. That would relate to the red dashed line that you see on either of these plans, and that's why they will be different. So this first alternative, you can see it says alternate design number 1 right on the bottom of the plan, is we held the 50-foot setback from the lot lines, and then followed essentially the fact that we didn't have what the contiguous area was, taking into account the 50-foot width. So for example, in this map, lot 2-3, the one plan north, you can see that we kind of just brought the red line over, and that's because it narrows down there, and we held that 50-foot required width for the lot envelope. So once it narrowed below 50, we had to cut it off. But that red dashed area still constitutes the 31,295. So in this layout, we are carrying the lot envelope boundary across the existing power line easement, partially because the lot envelope, again, I think we've discussed in the past, is we've interpreted it as to be the buildable area, whether it's driveway, house, septic. Some of that activity can occur within the easement, so that's why this one we showed, okay, what would happen if we crossed that easement and then hit whatever the restriction, a wetland buffer or another setback. The difference between this plan and the second plan on the second sheet is that we did, I believe, the board in the past has held a power line easement as a boundary point for the lot envelope, and that's what this plan shows. So we still have a lot 2-3 and a lot 2-2, which looks similar, but it did force lot 2-1. In that scene, we are able to meet all the lot dimension requirements, so we don't have any point of the lot that's less than 75 foot wide. We still provide the required frontage. Likely this layout would force the need for some test pits now back into the existing wooded area, but it forces that 30K area to be essentially at the very back of the lot. That's within the existing wooded space. So this, I believe, is the plan that would more comply with the board's historical interpretation of lot envelope. We do still believe there's the ordinance language allows for a different interpretation. I did bring a letter with me that we can provide. I know, Chairwoman, you asked kind of what would town council be asked to review. I did bring a memo that I brought copies of people to read, but it's something that I guess was more tangible that could be acted upon. I know last time was more of discussion, so I did put it in letter form this time if the board would is willing to seek that opinion. And then I'm happy to take questions. The only thing I did want to add is that we did make it to the Conservation Commission's September meeting and received some feedback. There was questions about the wetlands, species. I stated that we hadn't pulled any reports yet because we hadn't had any permits that required it. Really, I'd say the largest plan comment was that their hope was that the wooded area, essentially everything north of the power line easement, could remain undisturbed. Essentially required no tree cutting except maybe some for some of the driveways up front, but all the existing woods north of that easement could remain as is. I'm not sure, do you know if they provided, Sue was gonna try and send a note by, but I haven't seen anything. Okay.
I haven't seen anything.
I haven't seen anything.
So she was aware that, she said she would try to get something today, but I know she was taking notes during that meeting. Well, yeah, so the board asked that we kind of come back and show these alternatives, just depict them versus the original design. So again, the originally submitted design, we held the 50-foot front setback, but because the reference to in Article 2C, 3C, 2A mentions that a house and septic are to be located in the lot envelope, that's why we discussed it at length. I'm not going to rediscuss it, but that's why we held the 20-foot side setback. This plan would still require the addition of, we'd have to show those 50-foot setbacks, and the primary structure would need to meet that, but that septic area can be between the 20 and the 30s, the 20 and the 50. So we just want to bring these alternatives to you, and hopefully the color makes it a little bit easier to see the actual areas. I know that's one of the hardest things, is seeing what that 30,000 envelope looks like when you look at a number on the plan. So I think we recognize if we're asked to make a plan modification, we'd have to make update the plan with proper bearings and distances, but anything you would add?
Yeah, the only thing I would add is that with respect to the Conservation Commission, we'd be more than happy to put a deed restriction on those 3 lots for, no development on the north side of the power line. If that was the board's pleasure, we'd be happy to do that. We'd rather focus the development on the front of the property as we proposed with our original submission. So that makes.
It's a
makes
lot less
sense.
work on you guys, are you kidding?
No, it-
Well, it's less,
Really?
and it's less disturbance to the property
Yeah,
that you
but
built.
let's be real too. As a developer, you're not gonna wanna go to the rear if you don't have to.
Well, and we'd rather not build out behind someone, our neighbor's home as well, that, good if there's a buildable envelope out behind, our neighbor's home on, lot 3. But, we'd rather not impact, the back of the property. I mean, it's nice back there, it's nice and private back there, a long driveway wouldn't be overly burdensome or costly. That's not the intent for that plan.
Okay.
I have a question. Ian, on 2-1, you showed the 4K area in the front, the proposed wall in the back, the lot envelope mostly in the rear. Would it be safe to say that there is a building, not an envelope, but a building area that would accommodate a home, a well, a septic in the front along the road? So that though you're showing the envelope back here to meet the guidelines, that you could build up on the front.
Which plan?
I think are you number 2? You're on the second sheet still.
I'm on, well, that's another quick question
So
here.
at the bottom of the plan, in red lettering,
Red,
it
this
say
part, Chris.
alternate design 1 or 2.
It looks like,
Chris, like this part is what he's referring
yes,
to.
I see that. Alternate design 1 and 2.
Yep.
Lot 2-1 appear to be the same
Yep.
configuration.
Yeah. So yeah, you
Okay.
kind of get the triangle effect at the front. Yep.
So, assuming they're the same configuration, I just see the alternative proposal of the lot envelope. But the question is, can you still build near where the 4K area where this oak tree is, and towards the front?
Yeah. I'd say under alternate design number 1, there's a little bit more width there in the front of the property that we certainly could fit a house inside the 50-foot setbacks. Number 2, because now this approach doesn't cross that easement line, it forces the lots 2-2 and 2-3 to be a little wider, which requires.
I see.
So smaller triangle, I guess, is the best way to say it. So I would say under alternate design number 2, you could. It would be tight. But I know that normally and I know one thing too is I know it's usually the board's intent that wherever the lot envelope is shown is where the house and septic will go. It makes Dale's life easier when he goes to review a planning board, building permit. But I also know that there's certainly places where you might have an area that's 20,000 square feet that if you can pull a building permit for that, but you still need to prove that the lot has the capacity for the 30,000 square foot area.
Of course.
So from a planning perspective, so yes, I think in the alternate design number 1, sorry, you could. But again, that was really more so I was kind of transitioning back to, I think, what number 2 is historically all of the different boundaries that the board has held for the lot envelope. So it just leaves less area. That would essentially would force a driveway to the back of the property. And the reason the 4K is still shown there, I guess in theory we could pump up there, is this is more of a discussion. If we're forced to do the lot envelope back there, we would have to dig 2 new test pits in the back, and so we just weren't going to do that until we had a little bit more guidance tonight. But from everything we saw, there's no initial soil concerns anywhere on the property. The soils have been great everywhere we've touched.
Well, I think the environmental view of this is, keeping, there's a wetland on the back and not developing further back to the conservation, saying, hey, let's keep everything to the front. I think that's probably favored. It looks like the 4K areas are, literally hundreds of feet from the wetland, minimizing any impacts. And, like the state just did their shoreland, at the 250 for,
If it's
septic.
from a designated, yeah.
So I think you're well in excess of whatever the state guidelines are there to say that there's not a reasonable impact to that wetland by putting all the houses towards the front.
Yeah, that 250 applies to one of the, if it's a designated body of water. So I don't, this marshland is not
Okay.
designated, but yes, like Pawtuckaway, for example, like, yes, there's
Yeah.
new regulations out there, everybody be aware.
We do have state subdivision approval for the original subdivision that we submitted to the board. We do have state subdivision approval for that, I believe.
Yeah, we submitted it and they
Is this
just,
one?
the original
The original.
design, yeah, we did submit it and they actually came back to us like a week later with no comments and approval, but obviously if there's changes, we would have to reapply.
Can I
with the
see the
amendment.
original design?
It looks like 2-2 has a bit of a jog on the side adjacent to 2-1, which pushes the lot line over. Kind of squeezes down the 4K area.
Yep.
Are you not able to get that 4K inside the 20-foot setback?
No, that would like, it would be able to shift. It was more so, I mean, you're on alternate design number 2 is correct, the second one? Yeah, and so that was, I didn't move the 4K because in theory, from a plan perspective, if this was something the board asked us to move forward with, I'd have to move that 4K anyway, help back. But I mean, it could be. There's adequate space there, even in that, between those lot lines, I could fit a septic. But it would have to move enough for you guys to approve. We have to show the septic back wherever the lot envelope is being designated.
I got a question for Ian. Ian, where is the proposed driveway for 2-1 on alternate design number 2?
We show approximate connection point, which hasn't changed with this layout, but it would have to extend back through the 75-foot wide section and back to the lot. And to give you an idea of length, you'd probably be looking at about a 900-foot driveway, maybe 1,000 feet.
Where
depending
does
on-
it, what road does it go onto?
Mill Pond. It would still be, if you can see on the
It's near the oak.
Up near Mill Pond Road, there's a 36-inch oak. It's actually a maple, but I haven't changed that on the plan yet. There's a little, we call out potential driveway, typical. We would come in there and it would extend about,
Where?
The one you're looking at?
I'm happy to point it out if you'd like to.
So that goes all the way back to here?
It would need to,
Okay.
we just showed a connection point.
Just didn't see it. I
Yep,
got
it
now.
would, it would need to extend all the way back to that. If that rear lot envelope is what we had to show a connection to, we would have to extend the driveway all the way back.
So Ian, what you're showing here is not necessarily an updated plan. This is for the lot envelope aspect.
Yep.
Because of course, we've read through the zoning ordinances time and time again recently. So, and there's a finer point here, I guess, that exists, which is the 30,000 square foot contiguous area lot envelope in which a house and septic system shall be placed to meet all existing setback requirements consisting of upland soils. To me, that means that includes the 4K area and all that, even though in section 3, it talks about the actual septic system can be closer than the 50 feet. It can be 20 feet,
Correct, yeah.
okay? But that's not the 4K area. I understand.
Yeah. But the 4K has to be over where the, so like in theory, if somebody put this, we could dig our test pits. I guess you could in theory require additional test pits, yeah, because you could have the 4K,
And in this case, either one of these alternates, you're gonna have to, as I see it, you're gonna have to do some additional test pits in
a
order.
couple, yeah.
In order to put the new 4K area into the lot envelope, which may not be necessarily where the septic system goes, but,
Correct,
okay.
yeah.
Do you understand that?
I did, I got most of it.
Got a question. At the Conservation Commission meeting, they requested that you look into some type of wildlife habitat or something assessment. Did anything happen with that?
Not yet, so I did pass it on the message. Mike just returned on Monday from Europe, but I passed on the message, and it was more so, I think, I don't know if you want to speak to it, it was just, we didn't reach out to, I'm blanking on her name, I took her notes though. The woman at the New Market, the board mentioned, we haven't reached out to her yet.
Right.
I think, yeah.
I guess I'll just say it, we don't intend to do any wildlife assessment of the property. It's not anything that's required for us to do for any permitting, so we don't feel it's necessary to go through that expense. We're meeting all the appropriate setbacks to wetlands, et cetera, so we think the plan, we feel, is meets the ordinance and the regulations. We did make that effort to go to the Concom, and I think putting that, the rear portion of the property into some kind of deed restriction, I think is a pretty good measure for protection. I mean, I think, we're not trying to hide the fact that we're near this marsh area, and I'm sure there's wildlife there. There's no attempt to hide that. It's obvious, so.
Anything else?
I guess what I'd like to say is that it appears that the first plans that were provided to me seem more pleasing, except for the neck down area, because all of the development is on the roadside of the power lines. But I know we had the discussion, and I'm trying to figure out how, what, the neck down area is not is greater now, but I'm not sure why that ended up changing some of the other stuff.
So, okay, so
I don't know
you're,
if that's a valid question.
I think I understand. So you're saying from the existing plan, there was always the neck, the original plan, there was always the neck down.
Right.
And then, when we moved to.
And the
whether it's
question was, I
alternate one
think,
or
the
two-
neck down between the setbacks, depending on
Yep.
whether you use the 20 or
Correct.
the 50.
Exactly. So under the original, where we used the 20,
Yeah.
based on our interpretation, obviously, we still met that 50 foot. So we carried a lot of edges. We just carried it until we hit the restriction point.
Right, right.
But then, because of two alternate designs, we made, specifically held the 50-foot setback in either scenario. You obviously take away space, so we never, the
Yeah.
neck down was less than 50 feet between if you took a 50-foot setback, especially when you have a 75-foot, 90-foot wide lot.
It looks like there's a bend here on 2-2 where they jog that
Right.
line slightly
Right.
to make that neck down.
But I'm trying to see what is different between the original plan. So 2-3 lost on the southern, the western side, lost some depth, I guess, right? To make the other two move to get the
Yeah,
neck down.
essentially it was a work backwards from 2-3 to 2-2, and then 2-1 was kind of what remained, and we showed what worked to meet the 30,000.
Okay.
Anybody else have anything?
Yeah, real quick. So these alternate designs, I know at the Conservation Commission meeting, you mentioned that the potential house area, it wasn't necessarily fixed, and that, it would be preferable to have it in front of the utility poles.
Yeah.
And you also mentioned the possible deed restriction on the things north of the utility poles as well. do both of these well, sorry, I guess the alternate design number 2 definitely doesn't
Yeah.
allow for that, but this alternative design number 1 would be able to accommodate, and that probably would be the preferable way to build it, would be having the house south of that power line cut?
Yeah, so the third, if I had to guess, so that on alternate design for number 1, that there's that large back area on 2-1, so that's 76,000 square feet, so my feeling is that if the board accepted the way in which we're doing this on the lot envelope on alternative 1, we would cut it, like, we could cut it off at 30,000, even though we maybe don't neck down to 50 feet, we could still show a restriction of wherever the 30,000 brings us. It probably would bring you above the power line easement ever so slightly, but, you know, the majority of your area to build would be, on that south side of the easement. And your point's valid, is that, you know, some of the concern that we would have about, so alternate design number 2, I had not been drawn up, but by the time I went to the Concom, so then obviously when I backed ourselves in, that's kind of a conflicting request from the Concom
Yeah,
against if we went with number 2, is that you wouldn't be able to provide the deed restriction to still comply, because I don't,
Right.
even though I could put a house on the south side and meet building setbacks, like maybe, you know, if I wanted to pull a building permit, I could still pull one up front. But I think the board would probably take issue if I said, oh, I had the 30K back here, but I'm gonna put a conservation easement on it and force people to build. I think that probably get picked up as maybe a title issue at some point.
And it seems like alternate design number 2 would pretty much force those woods to be cleared in some way to be able to build that house and other construction as well, right?
Yeah. Like I said, unless somebody did choose to build on the south side, but the board would be approving a plan that allowed for the construction in the back there.
And you're probably, I'm assuming you're aware that the abutting parcel, I think it's the Fernald piece, the Fernald property to our north, I believe it's Page North. That portion of that development that abuts our property is part of their open space.
Yeah.
So this, you know, if we did a deed restriction, it would help provide a bigger open space area.
Seems like a reasonable compromise.
Yeah, so I think tonight the goal here is, I think if there's any requested changes to the plan, we recognize we'd have to come back, resubmit a plan with updated areas, bearings and distances, make sure, update all those numbers. So I guess we were just looking for guidance if the board was swayed in one direction or the other by all these, either the alternate designs, or if we're still looking at possibly going back to the original. So it's more so we just wanted to get some guidance so that we can not take too much of your time tonight, and we'll come back with a cleaned up submission.
Okay. Blair, did you have anything?
You know, seeing that they can move the 4K area on lot 2-1 towards the back into the 30K area, I mean, the plan would, as far as I can tell, would seem to meet the regulations, subdivision and zoning. You know, we're not left with an ideal scenario. They're just trying to squeeze a lot of things into a small bag, but you know, they can meet it. So you know, there aren't many options left to comply with zoning and still meet the applicant's goals. So there really isn't anything. The only thing I might suggest is consider using if we're trying to minimize impact, we consider using, I would strongly suggest using a shared driveway, at least at somewhere on this, either 2-2 and 2-3, potentially
So
2-1 and 2-2.
Existing cut in the stone wall. Where you drive
Just to
it.
minimize impact, especially if you're looking at a 900-foot long driveway. So we really wouldn't want, but, yeah, access. And as we can see, the presence of the easement does limit options. sort of conflicts with the goals of the applicant to get 4 lots instead of 3. Where they're at right now, I'll review it when they put it before us and look at all the nuances of regulations, but based on what we were talking about the first time, that was getting the 30K area that's inside of the 50-foot setback was the issue. And that's what they've done. That's where we're at right now.
I think there was also a discrepancy in the zoning that in one section it said you could have the septic be in that lot envelope, which is only a 20-foot setback, yet we're forcing it to be in a 50-foot setback, and I think that's interpretive, and it contradicts itself. So I think this is a good best case. Make this work. I think the lot envelopes here all have, are in excess of the minimum lot envelope size, and there's certainly not with there's good setbacks for the town zoning, so I think this is a good alternative. Design 1 is a reasonable plan.
Just to be clear, since we're looking at it, 2-3 meets the
Which
minimum.
one?
2-3,
On which plan?
either one, but I'm looking at the only one that meets our zoning, which is alternate 2.
Yeah, I think that's the one that needs to
Yeah, so that's the only one that is before us that meets zoning.
Claire, when you say it meets zoning, I guess the question that I would have is, where in the zoning ordinance does it say you can't use and or cross an easement to establish that 30,000 square feet, because
It's
it
required to
doesn't,
be continuous, the easement makes it not continuous.
I guess,
I mean, look, you can put anything before the board, they can
Sure.
vote on it, but my interpretation,
Sure.
and that would be my recommendation.
I'm just trying to establish what you meant by that.
Yeah, it's the fact that it says contiguous, it's not considered, because it's not contiguously buildable, you couldn't build on that.
But you could put a driveway.
We can do a driveway, we can do a septic system in it, there's a lot of things you can do in
And
the
your yard
easements.
there, you could have
Are
your
you-
pets there, animals.
It's not an exclusive use easement for the utility company, it's just a right for them to put their lines across it.
This doesn't meet the requirement of the lot envelope. But there's a perceptual aspect of this, and then there's a physical aspect. The perceptual aspect of it allows the physical aspect to actually take place. That's the situation we got in the regulation. Looking at me funny. There's a 4K area that has to be shown in the lot envelope.
Well, it seems like the board has, my understanding is that the 4K area can be outside of the lot envelope, because the lot envelope has to be inside of 50,000 square foot. The 4K area can be up to 20 feet to the side, to the setbacks. So it doesn't have to be entirely within.
But that's what we talked about last time, and when I reread this many times, I figured out that there's a septic system and a 4K area that's shown on the plan to represent a septic system that can be built there. In other words, prove that it can be built there. Doesn't really matter where you put it, but we have to make sure that they can prove that it's there. Now, there are other setbacks that exist, which is that next paragraph that talks about where things can be placed on the lot. I don't see it as confusing, but from the standpoint of the words that are used, I would agree that it can be interpreted many different ways. And I'm not saying I'm right. One is perceptual, the other one is practical or installed, as I read it.
It is up in, it's up to the board's interpretation. The board will have to take a vote on what's presented from them.
Yep.
You can seek council guidance, but short of that, it's been my understanding that historically the board has interpreted to mean that the house, the 30K has to be inside the 50-foot setback. And the septic area, the 4K area can be outside of it, but it has to be within the 20-foot setback.
And I think that is leading towards where we said, okay, well, the lot envelope language in the article referenced house and septic, so because in that sense, the lot envelope could pass through the 4K area, I think in
As
that
you-
interpret,
as
yeah.
you're showing.
As we're showing right now on this plan. The original plan, we didn't have it that way.
Right.
And so that's where it's, I mean, that would be good to also know if we, because a couple of these I would need to like dig a couple pits on 3-2. I know it'll pass, but I would have to,
Yeah, the,
obviously I want to show up and then have a sliver of a 4K area over the
so
lot
my,
envelope.
my question for you is this, and I can't see it in the original plans that you provided. I can see the setbacks and that kind of stuff, and I know they're 20 feet.
Yeah.
But it seems to me that the real crisis with this plan was the neck down. And so if you were to take that line that went 242.37 and continue that along to someplace out there, you know, and then continued the line, it seems like everything else would meet whatever interpretation you felt we
Well,
would come up with.
Yeah, so-
Is that
If we
true?
If we tweak that line,
Yeah.
I think then we'd meet the intent of the lot envelope, and we'd still be able to locate the homes up front.
Okay.
I think that's what,
And I'm looking at past the power lines to be some sort of a wildlife easement or conservation
restriction,
easement
yeah.
or whatever.
exactly.
To me, that makes a whole lot of sense, but.
So which line are they talking about?
So the question was,
Two,
Problem is if
2-1,
this,
the northern,
That's
the
what he's
easterly
saying, I think.
line that comes from the road, it's 242.37 feet. If they continued that line along to some point,
Instead of the jog that it has now, we
Yeah.
continue it a straight
Oh,
line.
instead
Further
of
out?
going like that, just go straight?
The original,
the original,
and so that would necessitate that the interpretation would be that we could go over the easement,
So
through and over
this
the
one goes
easement to
straight?
establish that 30,000 square feet. I think that would,
well, it looks like you got 66 anyway,
Yeah, so the,
and on the other one, you got 66.
yeah, so,
Seems like you could nibble.
yeah, so Skip, that would work, and likely there's enough width on this that, because what we established, and again, I didn't reprint this from CAD, but we've since made sure we put the 50-foot on there,
Yeah.
is that, this is another case of having to work top down, so if I say, okay, just 2-3 work, well, 2-3 had to be, that lot line between that lot and 2-2 had to be adjusted once I pulled that
Yeah.
on the sides into the 50, and that's where it started pushing 2-2 closer. I started eating away at some of that nice front area on 2-1 to make the alternate designs work. I mean, if the board were to
So what you're,
like the original, it's once I start actually doing the areas on it in CAD, it comes just shy, and we just take just enough that getting rid of and that's why both the alternate designs
Yeah.
still show the requirement to neck down, and then obviously you don't have enough up front inside those 50-foot setbacks. I mean, it would be desirable to try and have these be more uniform straight lots, and we could still do that, but if we're asked to meet the 50-foot setback all the way around and break the lot envelope at the easement, that's how we ended up at the alternate designs.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I see that
Yeah.
base-wise it won't work, right?
And it doesn't now. These are 11 by 17, so it's sometimes hard to get a little bit of visual scale on it. But
Yeah.
I know you guys can't keep full size in front of you. It'd be a little awkward. So
Yeah, no, that's fine.
yeah. So I think what I'm hearing is there seems to be a general consensus that the board, I'll say, would prefer alternate design number 2 because it meets the historical interpretation of what the lot envelope meets, 50-foot setback, not crossing the easement. And I think the only thing I'd want to confirm is that, as Skip brought up, that the 4K, I guess, should the 4K be shown in that? Because I would agree that historically the 4K has been shown outside of the lot envelope. but not inside the 20-foot setback. So I just wanna make sure when we come back, because if we're asked to show the 4K entirely in the lot envelope, it'll just require a couple additional test pits where we already are gonna have to go out there to make lot 2-1 work.
But you're saying alternate design 2?
That's, well,
Yeah.
I guess I need to step in and
Yeah.
kinda just make it clear that that's not I mean, this
Preferred,
is,
yeah.
this is more illustrative to show that, you know, given the size of the parcel, that we can, that there's ample buildable area on the parcel for 4 or 3 new lots, including the house. It's not our preference, nor is it, we're not asking to have an approval that's based on alternative design 2. And that's as Ian said, it's a 1,000-foot driveway across the power line to the back of the property. That's not what we'd like to see the board permit.
Okay, good, because that's not one I would approve.
Right.
I don't,
So, you know.
I looked at that and I'm like, why?
You know, we feel, or I feel, that if the board can support the notion, and there's nothing in the ordinance that suggests that you can't go over the easement, or conclude the easement, or go, you know, over the easement to establish that 30,000. We can show the 50-foot, we meet the 50-foot, we go over and through the easement. We can exclude the easement, I guess, in the net calculation for the 30, but we certainly can go over it and use it for well location or septic. But if we can go over to establish the 30, we can keep all the development out front. So we'd like to, if we can get some consensus from the board, we'd like to continue to explore some variation of alternative design 1, or where the board accepts our original proposal, which we still feel meets the ordinance. And I know that we don't want to argue that here because we have a lot of different opinions. So we feel the original submittal meets the ordinance and is the best design that meets the intent of the ordinance.
Let's go.
All right.
Giving opinions?
Pardon me?
Are we giving opinions?
Yes.
I can go back to the plan you showed us a couple weeks ago.
The first plan.
That's the one that we would
And the
prefer.
fact that if you would even offer that on the power lines and put that in the deed to restrict that land, you know, from buildings, it's a gracious, nice thing to do. I think it's better, I mean, no one wants it, I mean, some people want a 900-foot driveway, but I don't know why.
Plow it.
You don't want to pave it either.
It'll pay the electrical to be $30 a foot to be brought out there.
All right, I think what I'll do is have, we'll go and take a,
Straw poll. Yeah.
Well,
We'll make- we'll-
I just would like for each person to be able to speak. Mr. Davies, what would your preference be?
I think the original plan.
Okay.
Original.
Original?
Original?
Original.
I like the original plan. You've done a good job with the math and drawing all the lines and all of that. That looks great on this nifty little piece of paper. I'm interested as to what the Conservation Commission has to say. I'm interested in a detailed letter that we got from an abutter that shows all the wetlands back there. I want to see where that all lands before I move forward.
Well, we're only, at this point, stating which plan out of the 3 we now have in front of us is preferable. And I think we've all just agreed that we don't really
First
want
one.
to see the buildings go out behind and into that wetland area, and I know neither do you guys. So there's that. So-
With the caveat that we would put the remainder of the property. into
Yeah, and I
deed.
think we could
Each
start-
lot would have a deed restriction.
Yep. We would be adding that likely as on this plan, there would be a recorded easement plan to associate with that.
Okay, so that would be what you would be doing for us next,
Yep.
then?
There'll be,
Right.
yep, adding some information, I think. I'll be correcting that from oak to maple.
That would be good.
And we would, again, we'll add the conservation deed area so that it's something that gets
Look into
recorded.
a shared driveway? Is that still possible, or do you want separate driveways?
We prefer
I mean, you
sep-
mentioned.
We prefer separate driveways. We have 200 feet of frontage. You know, we prefer separate driveways if we can.
And you've looked at the site distance for those, and that's,
Yeah, and these are obviously just shown as potential driveway locations. We'd obviously work with your road agent to determine the final location based on
Yeah.
their requirements.
These look,
So Ian, if you went to the original plan, the 30K area which was being contested or discussed in detail and was kind of contradictory, that's still gonna be partly shown on the back of that lot, even though,
but no, so with the original design,
yes,
we didn't cross the easement, and it was mostly because we got to a point that we met the 30,000 and we held the easement.
okay.
And likely what I would do is, you know, for example, in the original lot 2-1, we called this out as 66,000. Well, we've all talked about the desire is to keep the development up to the front of the parcel. Is we show, a lot of times we just showed whatever that area is until you hit a restriction point. We can still show, again, the final approved plan, we could pull that back and we'll get to closer to the 30, so that area that's behind lot 3, we don't intend to build back there, and if we remove it from the lot envelope, it discourages that as the area that the board intended to have the development. So, on the final plan, what you'll see is we're gonna pull these lot envelopes back to really the minimum of what they need to be, so that we're not encouraging a building permit to be pulled back there, even though they probably could meet the setbacks.
Right.
So we're gonna encourage those lot envelopes be pulled forward. And like I said, I would, there's a couple other things that we picked up on the plan to add before final, but the big change would be showing the conservation deed boundaries. And that's something that I assume, would you like us to put on a plan and get back on the agenda for the Concom and just kind of get their blessing on
I guess my question to the board would be, if we're going with this original plan, so the intent would be to not change any configuration of lots.
it? Yeah.
Well, you had,
Unless we did.
I think my suggestion it's tough to know on here, but if that line did carry on and then therefore the neck down may not even be important at that point in time, depending upon how they get their 30K.
The 30K would probably end up being right where there's a dimension there at the neck down, the 80, I think it says 84. That's probably about, just proportionally, that if I'm at 66,000 in that envelope there, that's probably about the 30K, so it would stop at the neck down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I'm thinking, but
Yeah.
tough to know here.
Yep.
So if that was the case, you wouldn't have a neck down here.
Yeah, it'd be kind of a moot point. The benefit too is what we try to do is why it kind of turns is we provided 2 parallel lots. It's also easier to people to understand straight lines, well, monuments at every 300 feet.
You can see over there, the other post here.
So, coming back to the board at a future meeting, what would the board be expecting? I'm assuming there's some language, some deed restriction language that would go into a draft deed for these lots. And then, I guess, what else would the board be looking for other than that? Just so we're clear.
I think that a more specific plan that addresses where everything is being placed out on the lots.
So if we're not modifying these lot lines, if that's what I'm understanding, you folks would prefer that we stick with this original submittal, is that correct?
This means that the board is interpreting that the 30K area extends to the 20-foot setback, not the 50-foot setback. And this will forever be the way it is in this community,
Until you change your regulations, if you decide to do that, which
which is not something we do on the fly, you get a variance.
Correct.
So just so we know what we're doing.
Is this something that we can request a variance for, so that we
We
don't
can
set
request
that
a variance for
precedent?
anything. Whether it gets approved or not, that's up to the ZBA. But just so we know what's moving forward here. I understand where the board is coming from. This doesn't just affect this application.
I've got a question that is aggravating me, so I'm going to ask it. I understand you want 4 lots, but I don't understand why 3 lots wouldn't do, and then we wouldn't have any issues with I'm getting nods in the back, with the setbacks and the buildable areas and all. I don't get it.
Well, we actually wanted 5 lots, but we came
Well, I'm
with 4.
glad you didn't present that to us.
I still feel strongly that we meet your regulations.
Well,
I
that's
mean, we have-
you saying it, but it's not as necessarily with what
I
we've
understand.
always
I understand.
done,
I
so.
understand. We can agree to disagree, and I respect everyone's opinion on this board and in this room. But we have a 15-plus acre parcel. We have more than ample frontage for 4 lots. We have very significant building envelopes out front that meet all your setback requirements. The normal lot size is 2 acres for this zone. Because we're in the aquifer protection, we're 3, so we have 3+ for every single lot. I don't feel like we're asking for too much at all.
But just because you have a 3 or 5 or 15 acres or 70 acres, doesn't mean you can still put house after house after house on them. You have to be able to meet setbacks and have buildable area and all that. So this lot, I mean, I drive by it all the time. I'm very familiar with it. A lot of it isn't desirable area for putting a house on because it's wet and you've got all of the
There's a
marshy area back there, so.
Just a very, very, very small portion of the property that's wet. That marsh area just extends just a tiny, maybe
Barely
50,
touches
50 feet onto the property. The rest of the property is high and dry. Very good soils, very sort of a deep water table out front for septics. And I understand, you drive by it and it's beautiful, and maybe some folks would rather not see any homes on it, but that's not our intent.
Oh, well, I'm very clear on that. But I'm just saying, I don't see why, I would be much more comfortable if you came before us with 3 lots and they didn't look like axe handles and pieces of pie and a tripod or whatever you want to call that other design. I don't see, this doesn't, to me,
There's no way to configure parcels on this property that aren't looking more like a piece of pie, because it's already shaped like a piece of pie.
oh, I get that.
So, I mean, we're kind of constricted by what we have. Our original plans are the most rectangular of any of the other alternatives. So we feel we've done a really good job to meet every aspect of your ordinance and without asking for any waivers. And I know there's a difference of interpretation. I've never been before your board before, I don't believe, so I wasn't really familiar with your lot envelope requirements, but, so I'm still struggling with sort of that interpretation that I guess you've historically had. And I guess if we can go, and I think holding the 50 feet, we can still hold the 50 feet as long as we can go over that easement. We can demonstrate that we can meet the 30.
Let's see, that's the question.
I don't mind your lots, because if you look across the street, all the new lots, new houses built there, if you look at all those lots, not one of those is simply squared. They're all cut up in this way, and this angle, to get all their ones in. So if you want to say you're meeting what the community already has in that area, because the lots here not being squared match what's across the street.
Sure. And some of
But
those.
that's not really where I'm going. Going back to you, just thought I'd bring that up. Sure. What you just said before. Just so everybody knows what I'm talking about.
His name is Blair. That makes it even easier.
When you said the setback, you mean, we're still, the fact that the septic, the 4K area is not within the 50 is what you're referring to?
No, I'm referring to the 50-foot setback for a house. The dwelling is required to be 50 feet setback from all property lines. And so the 30K area has to be inside of all setbacks. That's what it says in the ordinance.
So
It says the lot,
Tell me where you're at.
30,000 square foot contiguous lot envelope in which a house and septic system shall be placed to meet all existing setbacks ordinances. This is the alternate soils. So all existing setbacks.
So
for
because
a house and septic. So the most extreme interpretation is that the 4K has to be inside of the 50-foot setback.
even though the septic could be 20 feet from the lot line here,
I understand that.
so,
Moving
so
aside,
we're trying to decide whether we're accepting 50 feet or 20 feet for that septic. And people were jumping ahead on saying it has to be 50 feet, which I'm reading it to say septic system placed in existing setbacks as per ordinance, and, which is 20 feet. So I don't see that 50-foot said for that lot envelope in this. I don't read that it says the septic has to be in that 50 feet too.
I'm not saying it does. All I'm saying is that the 30K does. 30K has to be inside of the 50-foot setback, because the ordinance says square foot contiguous lot area to meet all existing setbacks. The 50-foot setback is the only setback besides this 20-foot setback.
Well,
And they don't show the 20-foot they don't show a 50-foot setback on the side yards on the side yards of the original plan.
we certainly can show
And
that
then, yeah, it
setback
would.
for the building, but I guess we going back to that, the original argument we had at the last meeting, it says meet all existing setbacks. It doesn't say to meet the most restrictive setback, because if that were the case, then we'd be meeting the 75-foot setback to the wetland buffer. And then everything would be 75 feet from,
Well, you can't have wetland buffer inside your 30K, so you do have to meet that.
right,
Yeah, I think that's where it is. The existing setbacks, it's like, that, again, I don't wanna, I think I said enough. Like I said, I have a letter, I typed it up, so if you're curious, but that was more if you did wanna see town council, just so there was something on paper. That's why we showed the 20. It's house and septic and existing setbacks, so then you look at what the existing setbacks are, and they differ between the two. So that's
Why
why.
didn't you show a 20-foot setback on the front yard?
Ian, you've known this
Because
because
the
you've been
front
on
yard
this
is
board.
50 feet.
50 feet.
A septic is 50 feet on the front.
You've been on this board. You know what we've required in the
I will
past.
say it again. I openly remember voting. I know I wasn't the one I think that was critiquing the 30Ks the most, but I never had a reason to look into. And honestly, part of it, and I think it was mentioned at the workshop meeting, is that in 2020, I believe, it was when the septic setback was changed. It used to be
Yes.
50 feet all the way around.
Right,
It was changed to 20 feet.
because it's
So it
state.
seems that it might have, and that's why if that was still 50 feet all the way around, there'd be no question, house and septic, 50 feet all the way around. But the 2020 warrant article just changed it to 20 feet.
But
But there was no other change, yes, for the septic, but there was no change to the language of the ordinance. So it used to be where if you looked at house and septic setback, well, they were the same. Now septic has been changed to 20.
But not house.
Correct, so that's 50, so house and septic, so we're saying, we can still show the 50 foot, and I can, looking at that plan, I can guarantee that we will still show that the proposed potential house would still be able to fit within a 50-foot setback. But we are holding the 20 foot that is for a septic system, because that is part of the lot envelope, which is the buildable space for those two items. So that's why I think it was mentioned at the workshop meeting that I was able to watch back. It might have been a case where if the setback was changed, it probably was just missed that these two items were called out separately in the article language. Like it's been said, it certainly could be changed, and I'm sure it's on somebody's mind to change that language as an upcoming warrant. But that's where, I mean, again, we wrote it out so that if we needed to, but that's why we took that interpretation. I recognize that this is missing the 50 foot, but it's already on there in CAD, I just haven't reprinted it. We still have plenty of space to fit a house within the 50 foot setbacks. Just for the purpose of the lot envelope. Yeah, we have to, right? Yeah, I can't.
exactly.
But for the purpose of the plan, the regulations, we do show the lot envelope as holding the 20 feet, for that purpose, but I guess I'll leave it at that, but I do.
And I'll agree with you, because I was on the board before 2020. And the lot envelope in my head is always 50 feet
Yeah.
setback. So
And I think I started on the board in
I don't
2019.
see it here now.
Yeah, I started on the board in
As a
2019.
newcomer reading your ordinance,
Yeah.
I didn't have the history.
Yeah,
either.
I just assumed it was kind of in there, even though I read it a zillion times.
And that's why, like, I've openly admitted to Mike multiple times, when I was on the board, I voted for a number of cases that were the 50 feet, but I never had to look this in depth, and that's why, like, when typing this out, I put it all right next to each other, and I go, oh yeah, I don't think that's the 100% interpretation. There's an alternative interpretation, which obviously we've presented, and I'm sure we'll institute some possible language changes at the next cycle.
I think there needs to be a change, because, you know, even if you look at this, the setbacks on section page 4, 3A, setbacks between property lines or water's edge, that 50 feet that everybody's saying is the house 50 feet, could be 75 feet if that lot on Wolf were adjacent to a wetland. So why does that 50 feet have to be held, is the question. I mean,
Because-
why not 20 feet or 75 feet? Or
75 feet has to be held. You cannot have a wetland buffer inside this 30 feet.
We do hold that, we do hold that.
I understand, but I'm just saying that 50 feet is a variable that could be 75 feet. from a
Depending
wetland.
on
What
the
he's saying is,
land.
not all setback requirements are listed in 3, section 3, for like wetlands, for like any other district that may exist.
It's because it's for a standard lot. If you're looking at wetlands, then you go into the wetlands
I think
section.
at the time
But-
when this section of the 30K area was written, the setbacks was.
So this is the original, we've
For septic, for dwelling, and there was nothing
we made some
for
small.
wetlands resources.
Yep.
So to interpret that this thing would change what it meant to say, because other things changed, I think you'd have a hard time making that argument. Look, I'm not objecting to, 4 lots or bringing them all to the front. Logically, it makes sense. But again, advising the board on zoning, the 50-foot seems pretty consistent in the board's behavior in terms of interpreting this. If you make a decision that deviates from that, it applies to every application that comes before you again.
Until the language is
And
changed.
I
Language has changed.
don't,
So, and then, I'm not saying the board can't make that decision, I just want to make sure that it's understood that that is what it means. So,
all right, maintain 50, yes, no?
Say that again?
Maintain the 50-foot setback, yes or no?
Just to maintain the 50 back into
As compared to what?
As compared to the 20-foot setback.
on the sides.
What are we talking about, the building lot or the,
The building envelope.
The lot envelope of the house.
that should remain at 50?
Okay, skip. I know it, just a 50 or a 20? That's all I
20.
want from you. Okay,
20.
I say 50.
50.
I'll say 50.
Okay, so the majority is the 50.
So if
So
you,
that's-
is there a design, is there, a variance is an option. I'm not saying it'll be granted, but is that an option?
It's always an
Always
option.
an option. yeah.
so you originally, I heard 10 minutes ago that most of the board preferred the original submission with the 20-foot, and now we've sort of gone back to a 50-foot.
What,
And so I just need some direction so I can, figure out what to have Ian draft, if
Well-
anything.
what I was understanding from Ian, though, was that you would be able to meet the 50 with these original. Isn't that what you were just saying a few
We
minutes
can meet
ago?
the 50-foot setback for a structure, but the lot envelope would extend beyond that. That's what they always get. So like the 50-foot setback itself, because the primary structure, no matter what interpretation, has to meet the 50. Those lines are missing from this. Like I said, they have been added since. We just haven't reprinted the original plan because of the alternatives we started looking at. It's the lot envelope that we've extended past the 50 on the sides, again, for the purpose of that interpretation of the 60. The original plan doesn't work.
Do you have that plan with the 30K area, the 3,000?
It would, so like if I add those 50-foot setbacks on the original plan, that would be me not changing my interpretation of the lot envelope. The lot envelope would still go up to the 20, but for the sake of somebody pulling a building permit, we would still show those. Like it's, like you show multiple setbacks at cases depending on like 25-foot no-cut buffer plus the wetland buffer.
Well, I
But if the-
understand
yeah.
that, and I agree, the house always has to be within the, town
We would
setback.
show it at the next submission if the board preferred the
So
the original. It's
where
just-
does that 30,000 envelope, does that fit on lot 2-2?
On the original submission, it wouldn't fit unless we modified. the lot
It'd
line.
go-
Right, and
would it
that's-
fit going past the power
If
line?
it went past the power lines, we could modify to
Potentially, yeah.
potentially make the buildable envelopes all work out front.
That's more in line with like alternative design number 1 that we showed you.
And even
Yeah,
though,
I'm looking at that. The neck's down pretty tight. Getting a contiguous,
And it's because 2-3 and 2-2 kind of, you have to start there and work backwards, that's why. So, yeah.
That's that one.
I mean, this one,
So should we have a consensus on the interpretation of whether that, that power line is a dead stop on what is considered a buildable contiguous area or not? If, even though it could be used as, a well, a septic or driveway, et cetera? Yard space, put your horses back there, whatever you wanna do. I think we need to.
that would determine whether you're going with number 1 or 2 on the alternate designs, because that's the only difference between the two. Is one we do cross and one we don't. Yeah.
So should we take a consensus on that point? So that they can move forward with the plan, that they can draw this 30,000 in and make it work?
So you're saying you want to go with the original plan?
Well, original plan, but I think if we're holding the 50-foot, you're saying the 30,000 fit in the front of that original plan with the 50-foot, or did not? That's what I don't know at this moment.
I can tell you if we hold the easement, it certainly would not, just because I can just tell by the proportions, but,
Check. So therefore.
essentially it would be an alternate, we're talking like an alternate
but without,
number 3.
without holding the easement.
Correct. If I cross the easement, they might work. It's again, it's probably gonna be looking at 2-3 again first, and then working my way down. But there's a possibility the original would work.
Which are contiguous,
That's-
but probably neck down to like a 5-foot wide.
Well, I mean, ultimately, I'd have to meet the 75-foot, or if I'm trying to carry the contiguous lot envelope, I'd be 50-foot minimum. Again, if the board's going back to the consensus of the 50-foot, I'm into an alternate design of any sort. If we're gonna hold the 50-foot as the ultimate limit of the lot envelope. That's just the nature of, once I start drawing lines and taking real offsets, I'm into an alternate design if we hold the 50-foot.
Understood, so if the consensus was 50 feet, then, and you need to go past the power line, then, and
Yeah.
that, to make that work as as a first plan, then can we agree to that or not agree to that? I don't see it listed in the ordinance in a definition, so we have to interpret that, so. we should-
Interpret.
It would be fair to give these gentlemen an interpretation that, they don't come back and then we come up with a new interpretation next week.
Don't start that.
No, okay.
So.
You could
a couple
still
things.
put that.
Madam Chair, if you wanna, we've been talking for, give or take an hour.
Yeah.
If the, wanna open up the public.
I do, but I wanted to kind of settle where we were at, but it's not going to happen.
The other, so that.
We've got to give them something to go.
Understood. If perhaps something comes up during the public comment. that
Okay.
might help.
All right,
Jog something loose.
Come back up. Yeah.
please,
Okay.
Gil, step aside, because I've been waiting to open it up, but then Chris keeps the conversations going. All right, it is now 8:07, and I am opening the public hearing. If there's anybody here who would like to speak for this plan at all, please come forward. If there's anybody who would like, if there's anyone who would like to speak for or against, you may come forward now.
So I'm China Bostrom. I represent actually the seller of the property, and we also have property in Nottingham. But I feel like it's been like a lot of back and forth, and I just kind of wanted to sum up my interpretation of it. Basically, they have presented a plan that meets all the requirements, but it's not one that you guys want because it's building out into, taking down some of the wooded area and that kind of stuff. So in theory, they do have a plan that could pass. It's just not what we want. So, or anybody wants, really. So I think it's getting a little confusing between, yes, we really like the original plan, and now, no, sorry, just kidding, we don't. We'll have to go with an alternate. I think it's really important to understand that developments are gonna happen, and I get it, people don't love them. They're presenting one that can be approved. It meets all the requirements. The board is kind of saying that they really want the first one, so I would really encourage you to consider granting that 20 for the septic, so that way the development is more forward and isn't impacting the wetlands or any of the environment. And that's it.
All right, thank you. And before I forget, please make sure if you're here, when you come up to the microphone, that you state your name and your address, and that you've signed in on the attendance roster, because we need to be able to document who's here, and especially who's here and where they live when they speak.
And figure out the spelling of the name.
Well, if you
take care of
hopefully write legibly. Go ahead.
So, Nathan Legere, I'm at 211 Mill Pond Road,
Thank you.
and I did sign the attendance sheet.
Thank you.
So I've been to both meetings, and I've heard a lot of concerns. Mostly I've heard the lot envelope and setbacks and 4K and 30K and all that stuff, which I don't totally understand. But I do understand that it's a space constraint. The other thing I've heard is conservation concerns from a few on the board, a few of my neighbors. And then the last thing I've heard a few times is concerns about additional driveways. Sounds like all those problems would be solved if we were just considering 3 lots and 2 houses. And that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to come forward? There's quite a few people here today, or tonight, I should say. Again, state your name and address, please, once you sit.
How much time do we have?
I plan to leave by 10 at the latest.
I think we'll make that.
Okay, great, thank you.
Anybody else? No football games tonight? Right? So we have
Your
time.
pleasure.
Are you Phil Buster?
No, but I can tell you some good jokes, but not about this particular project development.
Okay,
So my name is Tom Ide. It's EID, just so it's corrected. 209 Mill Pond Road in Nottingham, so direct abutter. And I'd like to say thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you and voice the neighbors and our abutters' collective concerns about the York subdivision project at 209 Mill Pond Road. As described in our letter to the planning board, which I hope everybody has received and reviewed, right? So it's a letter from myself and my wife, Sarah. And hopefully we'll look at some of those pictures. I hope we've had a chance to look at some of the pictures of the wetlands and the watershed area there as well. We're very concerned about several issues, including the lot size and shapes, housing locations, the number of proposed houses, the overall project's aesthetics, and the potential for watershed damage. The proposed changes that have been talked about tonight are identified in the modified project plan, as well as some of the first original plan that was provided by Mill Pond Realty Investments LLC. Some of the concerns that we have directly about that proposed development, and I think some of these have been addressed, but that lot 2.4 is very close to the marsh. There's bound to be runoff from the wetlands from both construction and landscaping and ongoing home use into those particular wetlands. Lot 2.4 also consists of about 50% of the marsh in the watershed area. So the tip of the triangle of the property and back is not useful because a homeowner will need to walk along the wetlands to even access it. It's functionally a half an acre lot, which is bound to impact the value of that particular property to a homeowner.
There's not a 2.4. I'm lost. I don't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry.
I think you meant 2-3.
Is it, Sarah?
I guess it's 2-3.
2-3.
It's the one abutting the marsh.
The one abutting the marsh.
2-1, 2-2, 2-3, so it starts at 2.
Okay, so it'd be,
2-1, 2-2, 3.
okay, so it's 2.
please correct me. So it's, the printout here is so small, I have to, but it's the far right, the one across the street from Nate's place?
It's 2-3.
2-3, okay. My correction, please? So 2-3, not lot 2.4, so please make that correction. I apologize for the,
That's okay, and
error.
I'm sorry for interrupting you, but I was
Yep.
trying to find where you were talking
yeah,
about.
yeah. So again, my correction, lot number 2.3. As we identified in the letter that we provided to you on page 2 regarding the building envelope, it's near the top of the page, and I'm just going to read it directly, is that we request to decline to relax the lot size requirements when considering the proposed plans. We are concerned with the proposal to apply the metric of a building envelope when determining the boundaries of the proposed lot 2.3 and others. We oppose any resolution or any reduction in the 30,000 square foot requirement for the building envelope, as this constitutes a functional increase in building density in an aquifer protection zone, as well as next to the wetlands and watershed. Therefore, just in terms of some of the initial things that we've been discussed tonight, and that I think you as well have voiced, why not sell 3 high-quality lots rather than 4 gerrymandered lots? If the York House is replaced with new construction, there could be 3 quality homes in the subdivision. In addition, what I'd like to also draw attention to is that all of these configurations, regardless of the original plan or modified plans that have been discussed, have a direct impact on the wetlands, the pond, and the marsh area that exceeds 2 acres in size. Correspondingly, this size, variety, and function of the wetlands and marsh seems to make it equivalent to a prime wetlands designation, even though it may not be identified as such. It needs protective action. Accordingly, important issues to address regarding the project are the need. We strongly feel, though, that some sort of wildlife assessment and comprehensive natural resources inventory needs to be conducted before approval of the project plan to determine the impact on the wetlands and provide mitigation strategies, regardless of the developer's claims that that sort of request is not needed. Also, we are important and concerned about the impact of water quality and water availability for wildlife protection and human use, in that the water will run off from the building lots into the Little River that then flows into the Lamprey River in Lee. And the Lamprey River is a protected New Hampshire river, and then that eventually flows into the Great Bay, or in Newmarket. Again, buffer zones are needed for the waterlands protection. Also, as part of that, if you look at the submitted pictures that we had provided to you, there are 4 pictures. The developer is claiming that the land is, the homes are being proposed in a high and dry area, and that possibly may be true depending upon where you place the home sites, but that doesn't mean where the water is going to go, is going to be high and dry. And again, we provided 4 pictures for you in the letter, kind of providing different views from different abutters. And as you can see, it is a very nice area. And as Drew Stevens had mentioned previously at the August meeting, we know that there are protected and endangered species in this area. And we feel very concerned about that in terms of the need to provide them with a protected and safe habitat. So again, please look at those 4 pictures. There's some basic descriptions aligned to them. Again, you can see that they are being taken at different times of the day and through different seasons of the year. But you can see that the pond itself and the wetlands that surround it and the marshlands that surround it are, they're wet, and they're being actively used year-round by nature and our key wildlife and our animals. The third point addresses building aesthetics and lot design. The structure of the lots, the driveway locations, and building sites make for a shoehorned approach, which can be unattractive to local residents as well as to prospective buyers. And then fourth, the developer's concerns for his profits with limited regard of the environmental and neighborhood costs because of more people more new homes, lots of natural habitat, reduction of water availability, and watershed degradation. As I mentioned, the developer claims that a wildlife inventory assessment is not required. Obviously, he just doesn't want to do it, or to have additional costs to incur to delay the project and to reduce his overall profits. For these reasons and many others, we respectfully request that additional planning and plan modifications be made. 3 homes for the 206 Mill Pond Road land is appropriate and not 4. A simple answer is to replace the existing York home with a new home and build 2 other houses. We specifically ask, what is the value of the builder's profits over the land's protection? Thank you.
Thank you.
May I ask a question? If I may? Do you have these drawings in front of you, the same ones that we have? This shows all the lots and the size and
Yeah.
where it all goes. And you can see in the upper right-hand corner, there's a line there that says the delineation of the wetlands. Is that accurate?
I am not an assessor, so I can,
But is that that's where the wetlands end, right? It doesn't get wet beyond that.
again, we'd have to
You haven't
look
seen
at, wetlands, as you probably know, have various distinctions regarding high water lines and low water lines and water flows. So not being a land assessor, I cannot state, and I do not know if a wetlands assessment person or if a wildlife assessment, wetlands soil scientist was out doing that particular survey.
Okay, thanks.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to come forward?
Steve Stevens.
Oh, have a seat and state it so that it goes.
Steve Stevens,
Thank you.
208 Mill Pond Road. I'm the one that's getting a lot wrapped around me on 2 different sides on this. And I'll be honest, it's selfishly, I echo everything that Tom just said. The wetlands, I don't think, are properly being considered in this case. And it really upsets us. And, but selfishly, just adding to what everything Tom said, as far as I'm concerned, is accurate. I just don't get, and I get profits and all that, but I don't get why somebody has to make this god-awful lot that goes around my property. And I don't see how, you have to consider the people who are already here too. And why devalue our potentially our property just to help him gain money? That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else? Going. Okay, it's 8:21. I'm closing the public hearing. And I'll bring it back to the board.
I guess first, was there anything there that the board wanted us to try and respond to at this point? I know you had asked a question about the wetlands, but.
The wetlands appear to be delineated by Brendan Walden.
Yep, so the wetlands were delineated by Brendan Wall of the Gove Environmental Services, certified wetland scientist, so, every CWS follows the same standards established by the state for delineation of wetlands. And this included, we actually had him and these newer plans, not on the original. We took the extra step of asking Brendan to limit map the limits of very poorly drained. So there's different levels of wetland. There's poorly drained, very poorly drained. In terms of a freshwater wetland, they don't get into a designation of a high water or low water marks. You do have variations in water level through a wetland. This is particularly one. It's for lack of a better term, it's more like a bowl, right? There's really no. So that's why there's an ebb and flow throughout the season. Obviously, when it gets drier, it fluctuates. But the wetlands on the plan were delineated by a certified wetland scientist, just like every application before the board has to be. But we did go through that extra step as part of, after we hear the first time, and we had that very poorly drained marked, just to make sure it did actually, the 75, the reason being the 75-foot setback is required versus 50 for just a standard poorly drained. And it it was a little bit more encroaching, and so we did actually take that into account on these alternate designs and would have to on any future submission. But yeah, so we did have it mapped.
Off the subject, but just kind of there. You're not the developer, or are you the developer?
I am the developer.
Okay, so you're building the houses that's gonna be on the lot.
More
He's
than
not
likely,
swinging a
yes.
hammer, but
I will not be swinging a hammer because I'm bad at that.
No, that's fine, that's fine. So just because, it's been said in the past, if there's a lot available, people who want to build their own house or just buy the lot, bring their own contractor in, if that was applicable to this application or not.
It potentially could be. We're not opposed to selling lots or building homes. It's the option is.
So the option's there.
Correct.
Okay.
All right, is there anything else? Blair, do you have anything else?
Look, one of the things that's available is pursuing a special exception. Setbacks in C3B, special exceptions to these setback provisions may be granted by the ZBA, and it has 3 criteria. So, if you establish a different setback, that would impact effectively the buildable, the lot envelope area. There are other avenues to pursue besides just reinterpreting how the 30K area is calculated. We can sit there and say that this must be changed or better clarified in the road, but it's a zoning amendment that at the earliest would not happen until March.
Correct,
So I don't think that's really an option.
correct.
But there are other paths forward. The board can decide if it agrees that an easement across the lot envelope breaks continuity. I don't know if that one has been something that the board has looked at in the past, or been presented with in the past. Received any legal counsel interpretation on that in the past. But as, when I spoke up about the 50-foot setback in the 30K area, I feel like that has been something that I've seen enough times by the board that I felt like I had to just bring that to your attention. So there are other options.
Are you saying that we should get legal counsel on making this move?
Yeah, the only thing I said, yes, it's something, it's definitely an option, you know that. What I'm saying is that I just wanted to be clear what we were asking for, because last time we were talking about a lot of things. I think we're getting a little bit clearer understanding of what we each individually think. As long as you have a clear request, then yeah, that's certainly an option. But as we know, they have been very slow lately.
Yeah.
So
If the board can agree that that in the absence of any language in the ordinance, that we can cross the easement to show that 30,000, then we'll meet the 50-foot, show the 30,000, and then we'll just show a deed restriction on the back. We can show it for illustrative purposes to meet the ordinance requirements, and then we'll show the deed restriction on the back. It's an exercise that we're willing to go through to make sure that, you're not setting a precedent you don't want to set.
Well, I
you
think,
have to show continuity though.
But
If that lot 2-1,
but that easement doesn't say, that easement is granted to the utility company to put their poles. It doesn't break any fee title to the land. It doesn't, we can do a well radius in there. We can do a septic system in there. We could put a driveway across it. There's definitely things that we can do in that easement. We can't build a house.
I just meant where in 2-1, where it starts to neck down, right now it looks like at the 50-foot setback, it pinches off, it ends. You're not gonna be able to have 50 feet on both sides. So as long as, you still have to show some 5 feet.
yeah. Well, you're talking, and are you, just so I understand, you're talking about the original plan, pulling it back to the 50 and seeing, because ultimately I have to cut off my lot envelope anytime I get to a pinch point. But if I do the hourglass, try and carry it, I can't carry it for like, 5 feet, obviously I have to cut it off at 50 feet. It's different if it goes like this and comes to a point, but it's the hourglass, and it specifically calls out the hourglass effect, having to be greater than 50 feet or greater.
So it's 15 foot, the 30K area, not,
Less than 50 feet. And it's not in a case where, like, obviously if I have a corner, an acute angle, there's gonna be a distance there, it's 50 feet. The ordinance specifically calls out the hourglass effect, it cannot be less than 50 feet.
okay.
Yeah, and so that's why, for example, we're talking, there is a break there around the narrower portion of the lot, because we wouldn't be able to meet that 50-foot.
But did you put an easement there? Was that put in after?
And I think I mentioned it last time, but the reason we've also said that maybe the easement isn't completely exclusive is, there's the term unfit for building, which is in the definition of lot envelope. If you go to lot unfit for building, it's floodplains, wetlands, steep slopes, or if you have soils unsuitable for septic systems, which wouldn't be considered buildable soil anyway, so we know that would be excluded. There's none here, so it didn't explicitly call out above ground or below ground easements. Some municipalities do distinguish that. So that's where, because it's buildable, and I guess there is no definition of buildable, the term buildable in the ordinance. Buildable, some people think is a house, or some people think is, well, it's my driveway, it's my septic, it's my
Before
lawn.
we just keep talking and talking and talking, can you show on all three of these new lots, not the fourth one where the house is already existing, can you show house goes here, I got 50-foot setbacks all the way around, septic goes here, wall goes here, and meet every single requirement, no matter if it's out behind the power lines or not?
Yeah, I had plenty of space to put a house, a
Of course
septic,
you do.
yeah.
I-
It's
look
the
at the size of these lots.
30K that is what boundary we holding. That's
More
that's
than adequate
yeah.
space, correct?
I mean, like it's been stated, 2-3 is the smallest lot. Every other lot, at least on the original proposal, exceeded 4 acres. Some approached 5. The minimum being
I was
3.
joking earlier, but we could certainly fit more than 4 houses.
But you
on
can't,
the
what I'm saying is, I still have a hard time with the 30K envelope. Oh, I've seen them all, I've been
Well,
staring.
the alternate designs, I believe, meet all of the requirements, except that there's a couple of lots that are gonna require test pits in order to put the 4K area.
Number 2 is fully approved by the board. The problem is we're now in conflict with the direct request of the Conservation Commission to
Yeah, but you
preserve.
can't be in conflict, they're not, they're giving an opinion.
Yeah, no, I
They don't have
understand.
any ruling factor over this, what we decide. So it's just an opinion of what they want to see. And we try to meet what their opinion is, because that's what we're supposed to, and it's a good way to work in this government form that we're doing here, but it is not 100%. You come first, this plan here is one of two that meets every single requirement. It might not meet theirs, but guess what? Unless somebody wants to make a compensation here and say, hey, guess what? We're gonna look at the 20 or do something different to benefit them, but we're kind of at a crossroad here. If your number 2 is the one that fits, and you can put your 3 lots and make your houses on it, so be it. It's the way it is.
Yeah, that's what.
And who are we to say no, because you legally have made every single part of our ordinance. So there's no reason why this board can say to you, to vote you down for it, because you've met everything we've asked you to meet.
But the only issue is that I don't want to do alternative 2.
That's not my problem, that's your problem.
Well, ultimately, it is my problem, but.
I know, that's what I'm saying. But I'm saying.
He did say
It
that.
just becomes a bigger problem.
But again, well, this is what I'm trying to be a point here. It is what it is. We're either gonna go one way or the other. Which way do we feel is gonna be the beneficial for everybody to go? Are we gonna make a decision or not? Because he can literally come with design 2, and there's nothing we can do. You can say you don't wanna vote for it. Well, great, if we all voted down, we could see a legal issue against us and our board. That's not what we wanna see.
But we also don't want to set a precedent that we don't intend to set right now.
But
I know,
he meets everything, so it
but
doesn't matter.
The applicant also doesn't want
I
that
know.
design either, so we're trying to reach a compromise, right?
That's what
We're trying
I'm
to
saying.
figure out what works.
We haven't, in our hour and a half of discussing this, I don't know if we got any headway.
You can also.
Potentially agree with
You
that.
can also,
In this-
as Ian has come to realize that there's a whole other way to look at the ordinance, just because you've looked at it a certain way for whatever amount of years, doesn't mean that you were right about it. Maybe it's 2020 or whenever the ordinance was changed,
That one change.
made this first plan that we submitted possible, and, you know, this is zoning amendment time in the next couple of months here.
All
You
right.
Make a change, and the precedent is gone.
I think I would like to see a decision from legal on,
What do you have for suggested question?
So the one that I typed up, and it was just a summary of everything, and I did clips, was specifically about lot envelope, but I think what I'm hearing is there was a potential request to include an interpretation of if the easement could be considered. I guess if we're gonna go for an opinion, I don't know if the board would wanna see both, or I'd have to submit a new one if we're just gonna be asking about the crossing of the easement for continuity. So I didn't type that one up. I had
Right.
something prepared about lot envelope interpretation.
I would, my personal opinion, speaking for self here, is I'm concerned about the crossing the easement only because we've been told in the past that you don't do that. But regardless of what your house looks
just
like,
saying.
I'm just saying do.
Yeah, I know.
So,
It's always an exception.
Yes.
It's a special exception. We have
and the other thing is that lot envelope, because I'm not comfortable with reducing it from 50 to 20 for that. I just am not comfortable with that. And I know you'd like us to just go, you're all set, and have you go on your merry way, but I'm not comfortable with it. And I'm just one of 7. So,
So what I can do is, if you wanna.
I'm gonna add to the, yeah.
You can add to it and then email it to me, and
Yes.
then what I can do is, pass it on to the chair and vice chair to look at it.
Yep.
Because they have to send it off, it's not me, but, I can add in, what it sounds like I'm hearing the board ask.
but I need a motion because that's going to be costing the town. So,
I found it interesting, you didn't like alternate design too?
No, I still stand here firmly believing that our original submission
Oh, okay.
meets the intent of your ordinance. I'm trying to work.
And you like the
with you
shapes,
folks
yeah.
Because I've been on your side of the table I did my planning board for 10 years in
Yeah,
my town.
okay.
I know where you're coming from, and I've been doing this for 30 years.
so
I still
is
believe
there
that this
a
meets
motion
the intent.
to have legal look at this? Or
I'm
no?
not gonna make that motion, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Does anybody agree with that? If not, then make a motion on a plan. Because I don't really want to sit here till 10 o'clock just talking about this case.
I think, I'm just speaking out, that, that the easement isn't defined in the zoning, whether that is a cutoff or not a cutoff, even though it may have been formed, we used to do it that way or whatever. They used to do a lot of things until they were proven wrong. The change in the zoning that created a conflict in the language certainly calls for some action on this that's reasonable to, whether this 20-foot or 50-foot, we're voting on it on a general consensus, but what is the legal interpretation? So I think we need to have a legal interpretation for both the 20 and 50-foot business with regards to the septic, because it says both in the ordinance, and whether that power line crossing is, I mean, for that matter, we might say, well, the existing house has a power line going to it now, and we can't include that either in this lot envelope, because there's a power line there. I mean, where do you stop and start with this?
So you're reiterating what I
so
just said.
I'm making a motion that we have legal counsel review our lot envelope ordinance pertaining to interpreting the 50-foot setback for the 30,000 square foot envelope, or the 20, or whether the septic is part of that 20-foot setback, as shown on this first plan, and one, and two, the second interpretation is regarding whether the telephone poles or line going across the back creates a impassable barrier for this 30,000 square foot envelope that we need to see.
There's a motion from Chris, there's a second? No second, okay, motion failed. So, again, do we then want to make a motion on which plan these folks can go forward with? Come on, it's going on 9 o'clock. John?
Hey, Eric just said it, come with concept two, so they don't have to come deal with us.
Well, would you like to make that into a motion?
I said it clearly, you're not asking for a motion, you're asking for an opinion right now of everybody.
No, I'd like, they need to know what we want to go
And
forward
that's a
with.
consensus,
I-
that's
I-
not a motion, because we're not actually confirming anything. We're telling them that this board would like to see Plan 3, and when they have to come back with our Plan 2, whatever it was, and then that's what they come back with.
All right.
We don't make any motions or anything towards, because it's not an official, it's a,
Well, I just meant as far as, let's
And I
go
just-
forward, but yeah, straw poll.
there you go, that's what
All
I just
right.
said.
Mr. Davies, you sticking with one, or did you want to go with alternate plan 2? Because it meets all of the requirements.
You can't go with all, the Plan 1, because we already just told everybody that you can't have the 20 feet. So, with Plan 1, just throw it out the window. I'm not being, again, this is, trust me, I'm sitting here very frustrated at this whole incident.
I can
I've been
tell.
doing this a very long time. And it just, I'm not for building, I'm not against building.
Short
but-
of a legal interpretation that tells the board otherwise, I think you've got to move forward with your past practices. So unless you're going to seek a legal opinion, and that legal opinion gives you another direction, I mean, there are alternate 2 meets the town's zoning.
I think there needs to be a legal interpretation, because there's two.
But we already tried that, and they all voted it down, so please don't beat a dead horse.
Is there a reason why no one seconded your motion? Because, I mean, if the board is willing to share.
Yeah, I don't think that the fact that we as a board can't even understand our own ordinances is pretty terrible.
Well,
That's my open opinion to tell everybody that's watching on TV.
well, I
So
guess,
I don't think we should need to see legal for it.
I mean, I would offer that if the board's willing to share the council's opinion with us, then we would be willing to pay for the legal opinion.
I
Yeah.
believe we've already had a legal opinion that was very similar to this particular thing on a previous application.
Okay, so what are we asking them to do? Somebody make a decision. John says alternate 2,
I'm just saying,
because it
we're not
meets
giving them
all of
alternate
the
one.
requirements.
Personally,
I wanna see
I like
why.
the plan that was originally provided, and I'd like to know if there's a way in which it can be presented in such a manner that it meets the 50-foot setback requirements with the lot envelopes inside.
And we've asked them that, and they said no.
Only if we can cross the easement.
And I don't see why you
And,
can't.
and they have that bottleneck there, that if they go to 50 feet, they're gonna squeeze that down to 0, so that's gone.
And I think
Unless
we
that
can
line
still-
can come forward past
Like I
it.
suggested before, perhaps?
But I still, but
Can I continue?
No,
If there is a way to get rid of the neck downs, and there is a way to arrive at the power lines not entering into the play at all, that's what I would like to see.
there isn't a way.
Okay.
Not holding the 50.
And, but can the majority of it be taken so that there's a very small part that can be varianced or special accepted or whatever the appropriate phrase is for that? I don't know.
Here I go again, sorry. I don't agree with the interpretation of the power lines being a thing. Power line easement that rolls through the property states in the power line easement, if you read it,
it states that you have 15 feet from the center of the power lines, cross over what you have to, that you are not allowed to build a structure on that thing. Doesn't mean you can't put a piece of pipe underneath it for septic, electricity, or anything. It says you can't impede them from taking a tractor or something going over. Stop. So I don't see why that's not part of the 30,000 envelope. So if they want to put their septic on the other side, they could pump it right across. No problem. Still meets their 30,000 envelope.
Yeah,
I don't think this should be restricted in their building. My opinion.
I would certainly rather that interpretation of it in this case, rather than setting a precedent for our
The 20 feet.
setbacks. Yeah,
Sure.
exactly. A compromise here. I think the board much prefers the original design, and we're trying to figure out a way to make it work without setting precedents that kind of bind our hands in the future. And this is while we still have an alternate design that meets all of our zoning requirements that I don't think any of us, including the applicant, really wants to go with. And so I think that's what Skip is saying too, is that we're trying to figure out how to make this work without tying our hands in the worst way possible. And so to me, if we can make some type of exception on that contiguous building lot going over the easement, the power line easement, that would be, to me, a much better path forward than any of these others.
Absolutely, I can't agree with you more.
Especially if the applicant is being gracious enough to try to deed restrict the, back parts of these lots. That's not something they need to do, and that would go a long way, especially if we're considering alternate design too. Putting a house all the way back in those woods
Right.
is the opposite of what the applicant wants to do and what I think most people would prefer.
So Drew, which plan are you,
Area that
I'm
allows
trying to,
the
what
house-
plan are you?
Wait, I can't have you both talking.
I'm not saying anything.
No, not you both. But
So
That's fine, whatever, go.
I was talking about the original plan being the more desirable plan.
Okay, thank you.
Alternate design number 2 being, sorry, I'm using an older one. But alternate plan number 2 that has the buildable lot all the way back in this back lot. That's the one that meets all of our zoning, but nobody really wants it. And so, to me, I think we should figure out how we can make some type of compromise on this easement, this power line easement, to allow the applicant to have the original design that they desire, and that compared to alternative number 2, is much better, I think, for everybody involved. That's where I'm at. I think we should figure out how to make this easement, if that means seeking legal counsel on whether or not that.
We can make alternative 1 work and then still deed restrict the back.
And that's essentially closer to the original.
It's close, yeah.
It's as close as you're gonna get to the original.
It'll actually
50
be-
feet.
It'll actually be very close to the original.
Yeah.
You want to read that?
no, I don't agree with that.
So I can
Oh, yeah.
give you my opinion on that.
Okay.
Well, I know, okay,
No, that's fine.
Yeah, just read it, so,
Let me get my glasses.
sure.
Each lot must contain a 200 by 200 foot square, fit for building, or a 30,000 square foot contiguous area lot envelope in which a house and septic system shall be placed to meet all existing setback ordinance consisting of a.
So it's interpretation.
Well, it's always interpretation, but what I'm saying is that, what that says is the septic and the building can't be under those power lines.
It can't, correct, it can't be under them, but it doesn't, that's what I'm saying, it doesn't mean that you could bring a
Driveway.
No, I'm with you. All I'm saying is, again, there's a perceptual aspect to this, and then there is an actual aspect.
But the septic can actually go in that easement area.
Correct.
We've done it before.
Yeah.
Correct.
We just have to, sometimes it needs to be.
But the
certain-
lot envelope that you show on the plan can't. That's all.
Yeah. So the question there is, does that line create or discreate contiguousness, or whatever the word would
You
be?
can't build under it, so therefore, yes, it does,
It's not contiguous.
not contiguous.
Okay. So on plan,
But as a for instance, it would be my interpretation if I was, it would be my interpretation that if you don't go all the way past that power line, that you can use it. Not sure what that
And I
means.
don't think if we, you know, even if we go on with this, what we're saying right now, the amount of lots that actually have power lines that have been through it in this town, aren't they? We're not setting anything that's gonna make a big.
That issue is gonna come up so much less frequently than the setback issue, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's much less damaging of a precedent going
So
forward.
mine would be, my opinion right now, to end it all, before I, is the fact that the 30,000 envelope can include the area underneath the power lines.
And
You
over.
can- I mean,
So
that's how-
it could cross in theory, as long as we meet the
Sure.
50-foot
You're not gonna
requirement
build it
or
anyways.
anything else.
Yeah, we're gonna deed restrict it anyways.
And you're gonna de-restrict everything after, but just showing that it's part of your envelope, that's part of it. And that
think-
should meet all your, I mean,
I think, yeah, I understand what you're saying.
okay.
Is that gonna require a special variance, Blair?
Not
Right,
setback.
we're gonna tell them, yeah,
Not if
you
we-
can count, you can count that
If
as.
we interpret
I
it this way.
think Drew summed it up eloquently.
Thank you.
All right. Let's move forward.
What did I say?
Oh, what did he say?
I'm not repeating myself.
All right, so you guys, are you all set? You good?
Yes.
All right.
We're gonna modify alternative 1 and come back to you in 2 weeks.
And
So that'll be the next discussion, yeah.
You'll be here in 2 weeks, but the plan will be here in 1 week.
Yes.
Yes. So be here to-
Oh, that works, that timeline works for you guys?
We can flip a plan around by next week.
Probably by tomorrow.
Because again, it's, alternative 1 wasn't a huge change from the original design. It was just a small tweak, so we'll,
This one, you mean, or this one?
Okay, so do I
Number
have
one.
a,
This is the original,
Do you want a motion?
the original,
alternate design 1.
yeah, alternate design 1 crosses the
Correct.
easement,
I will
so
make-
it's a hybrid of the two.
I will make a motion to continue case 24-011 Sub York 206 Mill Pond Road to
October 9th?
October 9th, at Wednesday, October 9th at 7 PM with deliverables due
Next week,
next week, next Wednesday.
no later than.
No later than next
Second.
Wednesday,
Yes, Wednesday is the 2nd.
October 2nd. Hold it together.
Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, so,
We do that, you know.
Drew.
You guys wore me out.
I think we wore ourselves out.
It's been moved and seconded that this case be continued to October 9th with deliverables October 2nd. Is there any further discussion? Please, no. All right, those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All right, unanimous. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Here with the
Go home and have
Thanks for doing
something
the
nice to relax.
Maybe they will have time to send a letter.
All right, we've got to finish up with the rest of our agenda here. Is there anybody who has a real strong reason we want to do any further discussion on our zoning ordinance for steep slopes, ADUs, or setbacks for tonight?
Personally, I am,
Done, right?
I
Okay,
don't know if I
I
can
don't
give
have
any.
anything more for
reasonable
you,
thought.
so.
okay.
And when you come around to me around the circle, I'm gonna,
I don't think you
That'd be a
have. I do not think you have. All right, does anybody have any comments before we go on to approving the minutes? There's public comments, I'm sorry. No
But there
All
isn't
set.
any either.
Okay, yep. The public is all, with the exception of Mr. Ide? Yeah.
EID.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one comment I just wanted to make. I hope I'm not out of order.
Well, it's time for public comment right now, but may I remind you, we can't speak about a case.
I understand.
Okay, so if you'd like to come forward and say something, you may.
Okay, so just for the correction, Tom Ide, 209 Mill Pond Road, just for the correction for the September 11th meeting minutes, the correct spelling does not include an H
Right,
in our last name,
okay.
so it's EID. I know it's a simple tweak, but
Nope, that's okay.
we
Thank
gotta
you.
post
We've
all
caught
the
it in the
meeting.
past.
We gotta post the meeting minutes on our websites, so I do it every month, so.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You said for September 11th?
Yes.
I
But I,
see
I
his
don't
name
think
on
that,
here.
yeah, that was an August meeting.
Yeah, and it was corrected for the
And it
August
was,
meeting.
yeah.
Because you brought it up.
And we've already corrected and accepted those minutes, so.
Okay,
Right.
so we don't have to, all right. so
No, I think
Do
that's
we
already-
have anything for the September 11th minutes? If not, I'll take a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the September 11 minutes as presented.
Is there a second?
Yes, second.
Okay, so Chris. It's been moved and seconded to approve the September 11th minutes. No further discussion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That was unanimous. All right. Staff updates. Anybody? Do you have anything?
Yes. I've been on the board for going on somewhere around 20 years, and I don't know if anybody's noticed or not, but I've missed quite a few meetings in the last couple months. I have some health problems, so I think it's time for me to resign from the board.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. But thank you so much for all your service. You have been invaluable on the board. I have appreciated your comments and your insight on plans a lot, and I've felt it's been really good working with you. Thank you.
Thank you, but I don't feel like I'm doing the board any favors by being inconsistent in my attendance.
I understand that, and I appreciate you saying that to us, that,
There's more people on other boards felt like that.
yeah. Thank you so much, and I hope and pray whatever's going on gets resolved for you.
Well, I think it has been, but I'm still gonna be inconsistent for quite a while,
All right.
and I'm not getting any younger.
Thank you so much, Buzz. I really appreciate
Thank you,
everything
Buzz.
you've done.
Hey, Buzz.
Thank you.
And I thank you for your service.
Do that on my last day.
Ah, we're good. If we figured out it, it's a party.
There'll be applause.
You're gonna love the balloons, John.
All right, skip anything.
No.
Do we need to make a motion to discuss the resignation or something, or?
No, the alternates are appointed by the board, they're not elected, so. Should be no problem for me to resign, it should be no problem for the chair
We're gonna make you come from now on.
to appoint a new alternate.
Yes, well, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because we will need another alternate. As you can see, it is important to have alternates on the board. So if there's anyone who's interested, please come to a meeting and just speak with us about it, and we'd like to get you going if we can. It's important, and we thank you.
Can we
Chris,
keep,
anything?
can we keep Buzz on as an alternate, just to call him once in a while?
So, getting to the selectmen, we bought a used, F-550, I think, or 450 for the highway department. And we're gonna actually use it to try to take away some of the, hired help that we've had to use some of the new roads. So, more cost effective for the town. We'll put a sander in it, we were gonna plow and everything, sander and everything, so it was a really good deal for the truck. It's a diesel, and it only had 66K on it, and no rust, it was really good shape, so. It was a nice way, instead of having to go try to purchase a 90,000 or 100,000, we got a nice truck that should serve us years for only 25,000, so. We have a meeting coming up on Monday, because of conflict of schedules, so our normal meeting would be on 7th, but it's actually, we're gonna have a meeting, 3 meetings this month, so I'll be on Monday coming up. Tentative yet, I should find out that Thursday or Friday, because we had a separate constriction where we didn't have enough to make a quorum for the 7th meeting, so. And then we can't have a meeting the week after that, because the fact that that is Columbus Day weekend, or Columbus Day. So being a holiday, can't have a meeting. So again.
Calendar gets in the way all the time, huh?
Always messes up. And this is regular town business from that, so we're getting we should have a lot of improvements for when we come to election day. With stuff that's gonna be taken care of at the dump, that's taken care of in the back room here for when we move this room to back there. For what we're gonna be doing with the new gym floor,
So stay tuned for the next, we should have in this next month a lot of things to talk about, of things that we've accomplished this year with our infrastructure.
Is there a timeline to moving the room?
No, but it said, well, because we gotta get that room finished over there, the beam should have came in to set that up, the wall's going down. The electrical's already been, you know, so it's, once we have that room set, where we can move out of here,
Yeah.
that's gonna be the priority, we're gonna move out of there, and then we'll work on this room, and getting rec into this room.
And are we gonna have a better system for transmitting our?
Yes, that's in the works too, but that's not quite, we haven't got there yet.
Okay.
That is in the, we're not trying to put a whole new room and keep all the same bad stuff we have. If we're gonna change it, we wanna make sure that it's done right and properly, so
Okay,
that will be addressed. But everything costs money, so,
yeah, except the air we breathe yet.
for now, hold on for that.
Exactly, I know.
And that's it, so
That's it.
far. We didn't have a bad, good Nottingham day, because it poured all day, so it stunk for the Nottingham days, you know.
Yeah,
That was at the state park.
I had
Rain,
planned to
kind
go to that, but I was like, not in the rain.
It was quite rainy in the afternoon, so.
Well, I went down there the afternoon. I sat in my car and decided not to get out.
Right,
It was pouring, man. I can't, nah, forget it.
right, if it's not even, it wasn't,
Yeah.
I mean, if it was on Sunday, it was very enjoyable in the park on Sunday afternoon, but whatever, so. Oh, and then we do have, keep posted the Rex, there's a lot of stuff coming up for Halloween and stuff like this, where it's not called trunk or treat, but it's called like, you know, town party, you wanna say, for Halloween and the kids, and, you know, stuff like this, they're gonna have cars with candy for your kids and stuff like this to go on, just look at the rec, they're doing a lot of things, that's really community oriented in these next upcoming times between now and Christmas, so just stay tuned with what's on their page.
Okay. Do you have anything?
I have nothing to add.
Right?
Oh yeah, the dumpster's going back to the old hours, because we're at that time, just Thursday nights and 7 aren't gonna be there anymore, in case the rescue.
We're gonna have a petition to make it go summer hours more?
Not when I'm sitting there.
Blair, did you have anything?
I will just, if, you know, you haven't been keeping track, I will be submitting so the Board of Selectmen, not this past Monday, but the Monday prior, voted to give the TA authorization to sign a grant application for the Housing Opportunity Planning Grant. I should be buttoning that up tomorrow, giving it off to Jen for review, and then we have to have it in on Monday. I hope to have it done by Friday, but we have to have it submitted on Monday.
Okay,
So that's going to be heading in.
excellent.
It's a competitive grant, you know, there's no guarantee, but hopefully, fingers crossed, we can at least get something
Thank you, Blaine.
to go through.
Are we gonna be able to get a look at that?
I can absolutely send it to you guys. I don't know if I can send it to you and get feedback before I submit it, but I can certainly.
So your point is, well, what's the point then?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd be interested in seeing it before you, when you send it to the TA.
Yeah, let me double check with Jen, make sure it's
Okay.
okay.
All right.
I don't want to speak on that.
It's not
But it
urgent.
shouldn't be a problem.
Okay.
So yeah, that'll get in this week, so fingers crossed, hopefully that all works out. Beyond that, no.
All right, well, I attended the SRPC meeting on the 20th and heard that dues is going up. It will be an impact for Nottingham, it's up 3.2% because it goes up based on population. And I found out, which something you might find really interesting, that by 2040, Somersworth will be full. They will not have any more land available. And by 2027, for Newmarket. That's if I heard correctly at that meeting. Isn't that what they were saying?
Yeah, I mean, reaching full build out based on current allowances of zoning. They could obviously, you know, lower lot sizes, increase heights, so you could redevelop a parcel, but
So in 3 years, Newmarket would hit their,
I don't know if that.
That was the date they
I-
said was 2027.
I can't confirm that, but I can just confirm what essentially what they're saying,
Gotcha.
is that you're reaching full build out based on.
And it was 2031 for Somersworth. Yep. So I thought that was really interesting. And it is based on current zoning ordinances, lot sizes, and where residential areas could be, correct?
Yes. It's what they're alluding to. I mean, it's not a science, but, yeah.
I just found that really interesting and a little like, yeah, that makes our areas a whole lot more desirable, doesn't it?
But did they mention anything about Nottingham, about how many buildable potential lots we have?
No,
here?
these
I
were-
saw that somewhere previously.
Pull up the tax card and start looking around, you'll see how many lots you potentially can have.
Yeah, I mean, your communities were 80% unbuilt. That doesn't mean it's buildable, right? You still have surface waters and wetlands that are gonna limit that. You're gonna have conservation land, like permanently protected, not current use.
Right.
But, yeah, you have substantial building areas. But your build out is not gonna be that high given the large lot sizes. So I don't know if it'll be as quickly as those two communities, but, you know, based on current zoning.
And
One
that,
of the things I wanted to point out, you know, with, well, not with these guys, but just with anybody in particular, open space subdivision is minimum 20 acres. Right? Something like that, you could reduce and still get the same number of units, but it opens that up as an option for other development parcels, right? If they're gonna protect a resource, if they're gonna protect land.
So you're saying change 20 acres to 15 acres or 10 acres?
And in Stratford, there is no minimum lot size.
Okay.
You just have to have something on the land, not just trees, but it has to be a resource or something contiguous with something else. It has to be able to give them a reason, a motivation to it. So it's more looking at it from a resource standpoint rather than limiting the building standpoint. The point I was trying to make is that heading into a hot grant, there's a lot of different ways you can look at your land in terms of build out and potential. Because that's part of what we do.
all right.
Maybe we need to clean up the clarity of 30K.
Yeah, there's a couple that might be good.
Yes, definitely, please. All right, I will entertain a motion to adjourn, and then we do have these plans
Last
here to
motion.
sign. What's that?
My last motion.
I'll second that.
All right, it's been moved and seconded, then we adjourn. All in favor? Aye, go for it. Let's go sign this